Do nothing, you fade. Take action, you get paid. Do nothing, you fade. Take action, you get paid. Come on. Wanna beat the competition? You find losing hard to manage? When you hear from Tracy Myers, you get an unfair advantage. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is L.A. Williams, Vice President with Dealer Synergy and the creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. And man, I'm telling you, I got a super duper treat for you today. Not because I know you heard recently Miss Tiana Mick, T got your keys. She's still here. What's going on, T? Then we got her in the
Hey,
building.
millionaires. Yep, I'm still here, and I'm super excited to actually bring on somebody even, I would like to say, kind of like a father of our industry. So, LA.
Yeah, 100%, man. A pioneer, right? That's one of the words I like to use to describe this gentleman. He was at the Internet Sales 20 group, and he talked about lessons he learned from his dad, right? And I think I'm gonna drop in the song that I used to introduce him, man, because I'm telling you, it's a fun song. But he's the man. I want y'all to put your hands together for my main man, Mr. Tracy Myers. What's going on, Tracy?
Hey, what's going on, man? Eager to be here, ready to share. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh man, I'm telling you, man, it was so. Let's talk about that, right? At 20 group, did you hear the song? Were you shocked by it, like, or did it was just like, man, I'm getting ready to speak, and you didn't even notice it? I mean, break it down for me.
So I didn't notice it, and somebody told me afterwards because I don't know about you, man, but I'm getting ready to go on, and I get in that place, right? And I know T came backstage, and she probably was busy too, didn't notice, but I'm in a different spot, right? I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just pacing. I'm getting my thoughts together. I don't know. It's just a different experience, right? When you get ready to share your story, or at least it is for me, because it's super important that I'm in that spot. So I didn't hear it, and someone told me afterwards, and you told me, man, I got you the best song of the conference.
All right, cool. So I got to make sure you hear that joke, because it just fits so well from a word standpoint, but the vibe is just totally it's whacked out crazy. So anyway, all right, cool, man. So your story is one that I know is really powerful. Tiana knows is really powerful, but I don't know how much our listeners know. I know some of them probably know. They got to know you because you're the man down there, man. But for those who don't know you, we want to kind of just get into a little bit of your story. But tell the folks, most people don't grow up and say, "Mom, Dad, I want to be in the automotive industry. What do I got to do?" Right? So, and I know you kind of come from being in the automotive industry, but is this something that you always wanted to do growing up? I mean, break that down for us.
Yeah, so my great grandfather actually started the first Frank Meyer store 103 years ago this year. So, entrepreneurship is in our family on my dad's side, and I don't think I remember anyone from his side of the family ever working for anyone except for themselves. So I saw entrepreneurship, but the car business, man, I just didn't think it was in the cards for me. My dad even told me several times, and not in a negative way. He was just old school and put everything out there. He said, this business isn't for you. It's too cutthroat for you. You're too nice. He would say stuff like that, right? Look, that's my dad, and I trust him, right? And I saw he was successful. So look, if he says it, it's got to be right. So I actually think I internalized a lot of that when I was younger, and also saw the fact that what he did for a living, it took so much time away from his family. And even though at a certain age, when you're younger, you don't really know the importance of family. I knew that, man, I don't want, and you don't understand children or any of that stuff, right? It's just a different dynamic. But I did know that, man, my dad's gone all the time. I don't want that for my family, or when I get older, or when I grow up, or whatever that thought process was. Right. I remember we would go out to eat, and we'd go to, like 20 minutes up the road. I'm from a really small town, so the closest restaurant was actually probably 30 minutes away. So when we would make that trek on Saturday nights, the one night we'd all go out as a family, I mean, it'd take like 2 hours to get there, because he would literally, every time he would see a car on the side of the road with a for sale sign, he would pull in the driveway, and he would go knocking on the doors, right? How much is this car? And then you start negotiating. And as small kids, we had zero patience.
Right.
Like, what is he doing? We just want to go to Pizza Hut, right? So, man, get back in the car. So those things register with me. And I said, I don't want to do this at all. And look, to my dad's credit, he said, look, if you don't want to do this, I don't want you to do this, because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to be successful at it. So that was one of the first life lessons that I ever learned from him. So no, I don't think that I do think it was my destiny to be in it, but my journey or my journey to get into the car business or being in the automotive industry was totally different than a lot of folks.
Yeah, I know the story, so I definitely want to have folks kind of get tuned into it, right? So you were at listen, this is totally not for me, right? Where some people are, that's exactly where they are, right? And then at some point in time, something shifted, right? So kind of just share with us a little bit of that story. How did
Yeah,
it shift?
yeah. So I had graduated high school at 17, not because I was smart, just because the way my birthday fell, right? So I remember my birthday, I turned 17 on May 25th, and on June 7th or 8th, whenever I graduated high school, a week later, I said, I'm moving to Atlanta. Now, backtrack a minute and remember, when I say I'm from a small town in the country, I'm from a small one stoplight, one grocery store, one gas station town in the country, right? So when in our closest city, Charlotte, which still isn't a huge city, but I'd maybe been to Charlotte 3 or 4 times in my life at this point. So I popped up and said, "Hey, I'm moving to Atlanta." I don't know where Atlanta came from. There was a school there I thought I wanted to attend. So once again, to my dad's credit, my mom's having a nervous breakdown, right? But my dad's like, "Yeah, man, you're a man now. You go for it. Do what you want to do, son." So they packed me up, moved me to Atlanta. I worked any job that a college student is going to work at that point in time. I was going to school from 8 to 1, working traditional retail jobs, and fast food, making no money. And one thing that always registered, man, I don't like to be broke, right? I didn't like to be broke then. I don't like to be broke now. And the only way not to be broke is not to be broke. You got to make money, right? You got to get paid. So I'm flipping through the newspaper, and as I share all the time, especially my son who's 22, back in the day, we used to look for jobs through the newspaper, right? We go flipping, and I saw this big ad that says, make up to $5,000 a month, selling cars, no experience necessary. And I said, you know what? I don't want to sell cars, but I know I can sell because my dad had taught me to sell anything. He always told me, look, if you can sell yourself, you can sell anything. And I still believe that. I teach my people that. So I went in the traditional automotive industry interview at that point in time. Sadly, it's still like that in a lot of spots. It's like, when can you work? When can you start? There's the desk. There's the phone. There's the keys. There's the bathroom. Good luck to you. Right.
Right.
And I literally started that day in Atlanta. So I worked my way up. I was at a Toyota Buick store. At the time, I was, and I don't know about now, but I became the youngest sales manager in that store's history at that point in time. So, in 3 months, they'd moved me up. Now, whether that was out of skill or necessity, or they just saw that I wanted to and had the want tos, who knows, right? But we were being productive. I was making a lot of money. I worked there a year and a half. I was selling cars and then being a sales manager from 3 until midnight. This store was open to midnight. So that's how bad I wanted to be successful and make money. I was in school from 8 to 1, 3 to midnight. And the story goes, I got my first paycheck. I looked at my paycheck. I thought about school for about 15 seconds. I'm like, man, I have no idea why I'm in school. None. So I dropped
all
out.
right, so break that down to us, because the folks want to know, right? So you were working at the fast food restaurant. It kind of reminds me of Tiana's story too, because she talks about how she was working at the fast food restaurant, flipping burgers, flipping her Krabby Patties, right? And then
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, Tracy, why am I getting like flashbacks?
Yeah, right.
So you see that paycheck, and so what how much was it, and was it like compared to what you were already being paid, and how why did it, well, of course, I think once we hear the number or something, you'll be able to break down to us the paradigm shift. Break it down for us.
Oh, sure. Look, my first paycheck was like $1,800, and I'm 17 years old, and I've been making minimum wage in a sweatbox, and I still don't know what I'm doing. And look, I'm 52 now, and in my mind, I still don't know what I'm doing, and I think that's why. I think that's one of the reasons I've stayed successful, stayed hungry, because I'm an eternal student of whatever I do. But I didn't.
So you basically made 4 times what you would have normally made on a paycheck.
I'm like, man, why am I in school? I did easy math. I'm like, I've got to generalize. I was going to school for generalized business. I'm thinking, man, if I'm making, if I can get out of school making, I wasn't thinking very big at the time, 60, 75,000 a year. And if I keep doing it at this pace in the car business, times X times, 52 weeks. Oh my God, no way I'm going to stay in school. So I quit school. I didn't tell my parents, and how in the world I thought that I could get that by my parents without them
Get away
finding
with
out.
it.
That's how country and naive I was at that point in time, right?
Most kids that age, they think they doing something. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. But
oh, they ain't
look,
gonna know.
no, but and look, once I'll bring this back like 100 times during this conversation. To my dad's credit, um, he didn't call me out when he found out. And I'm sure that he's the one that stopped my mom from calling me out, because my mom
Hmm.
didn't want me there to begin with. And, he knew that I had to make my way, and that calling me out saying, why did you quit school? That serves zero purpose, right? That was for
Right.
them. That wasn't for me. And I just had to figure things out. So after a year and a half, and I'm making really good money now. And keep in mind, I was 18 by this point. I'm making six figures at this point at 18 years old. I'm a sales manager. And look, I like to think, I've gotten a lot more humble over the years, but look, I'm 18 and I'm bulletproof, right? I'm on top of the world. So I
Hmm.
called my dad and I said, hey, look, I got something to tell you. I quit school about a year and 3 months ago. He said, yeah, I know. And I said, and of course, I didn't know that he knew. And I said, and I've been selling cars. He said, yeah, I know. I knew somebody at the auction, and they told. I was like, man, you've known this whole time. He said, yeah, that's fine. You had to find your way, right? And I said, okay,
Right.
I appreciate that, respect. And he said, and I said, look, I think I want to come home work for the family business. He said, okay, got a spot for you. So I packed up. I turned him a notice. I packed up everything I owned, which wasn't a whole lot at this point because I was working all the time, but that was okay,
Hmm.
right? I'm single. I'm
Hmm.
just making money, and I'm learning. And I came home and I started that next Monday. I go in with a suit and tie. He looks at me and said, you are way overdressed. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm going to be selling cars. He said, no, you're not. You're going to the detail shop.
He said, I got a spot for you. I ain't
And, well,
say
yeah, like,
what the
whoa, wait
spot
a minute.
was.
I've been a sales manager. I mean, I can take sales, but I'm not going to the detail shop. He said, that's all I got open. And I mean, I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what's it paying? He said, it pays, minimum wage. And look, I was angry. I was disheartened. I was frustrated. I was sad. I was disappointed. Yeah, every negative emotion ran through me at that point in time, because I'm like, man, this is my dad. Why does he treat me like this? And
Hmm.
and he knew that, and he said, "Look, son, if I had the position open, I still wouldn't put you there, because this is a family-owned business, and if you don't earn everyone's respect, they'll never respect you. They'll
Hmm.
know that it was given to you, and we'll lose everything we got just simply because they don't respect you. Because in this business, or in a leadership position, especially, I mean, that respect is everything from your peers and your teammates and your employees."
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you could talk about how, even for me being a blind individual, I've worked all the positions here at Dealer Synergy, minus CRM. But when it comes to HR, I've done it. When it comes to, pulling the phone calls, I've done it. Right. So there's not a lot that someone can say, oh, LA, you don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what I'm going through, all that different kind of stuff. And to be honest, really in the same situation. So you rocking and rolling with this.
LA, I was just going to say, I think we wear similar crowns, Tracy, especially when it comes to, earning the respect in the automotive industry. And, just because you know somebody in upper management, oh, that's because you got that position. But I love that your dad made you work in, detail, because not only that, I'm sure you gained a whole side of respect for just that department in general. I mean, am I wrong?
Oh, you're absolutely right. That's the other side of it. I saw things from my what now they're my employees, and I call them my teammates. But for reference point here on the podcast, I'll call them employees, because I'm still a worker, right? I'm
Hmm.
involved in the business. I work in the business and on the business. I think you can do both, and I think you need to do both if you're going to be active. But nonetheless, that's another conversation altogether. But you're right. I gain respect for detail, and from the detail, which is the front. I know sales is the front line, but you can't have the front line unless you got the guys in the shop and in detail. And like right now, here today, it's 106-degree heat index. There's no AC in the shop, no AC in whether the repair shop, service department, detail shop. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to have, cold feet your feet are numb in the winter, and you can't catch your breath in the summer, because that's just part of what you do. So I understand that. So I can truly have empathy for them, instead of saying, man, that's a bad place to work. I wouldn't want to be there. I know what it's like to be there. So absolutely. And I think that helps me understand them more. I think that they understand that I understand them more. So that makes us more connected, because I do my best to share my story with all of them, because even the folks that maybe moved into the state, or they don't know my story at all. I find as many times as I've told it to the people that work here, and we don't have a lot of turnover when we hire someone new, and baby faces, I'll call my son's 22. He knows my story, but his best friend worked here a year before he did. He doesn't know the story per se. So I end up telling that story over and over, because I think it's important for them to know that point of reference and where I come from, not from a place being on a soapbox and to brag,
Right.
but because they know that I've been where they're at. Because my dad always said, look, if you want to be successful, find someone who's already done what you want to do, or they're where you want to be, and just wear them out, just stay with them, get to know them. They need to be your best friend. So I want them to know, look, if you want to know how to go from broke to having a lot, to quitting school, to being a car salesperson, to being a dealer principal, with multiple locations and getting paid, and multiple generations. I mean, look, the statistics show that family businesses, especially the first generation, second generation, drops dramatically in it just sticking around, right? When you go to third generation, it's down below, it's 8 to 10%, or even lower, depending on what study you're looking at. Fourth generation is almost unheard of being successful, unless it's a major corporation. But by that time, they have stockholders, investors, things like that. And we've never had that in our family. It's still just our family.
Gotcha, man. Listen, so this is good stuff. We're getting parenting advice, we're getting management advice, but
it's all related, right? It's all related.
Yeah, 100%. So here's what I want to do. I want to have you give folks like your best tip, just as you're talking to your sales team, and they're hungry. You got the tuned in listen team, right? And they're like, how do I make money as a salesperson? If I want to make a lot of money as a salesperson, I heard you say, that I got to learn to sell myself, but I don't even know how to do that. How do I make money?
Look, number one, your network is your net worth. 100%. Especially, and I'm sounding like old man yelling at clouds now, but this has never changed. The more people that are in influential positions of power, money, knowledge, right? That's the more successful you will be. There's data that proves it. In younger generation, and look, I love technology. I love technology. I think that's one of my strong suits, that I've always been an early adapter. Even, there's always been technology per se, but I'm early adapter with anything. And I'm fortunate the place I am in the industry, and I've been in this game so long. A lot of tech folks will call me, and they'll actually ask me to beta their new software, the new program, or something like that. And I said, I'd be glad to, right? And they want me to give them brutally honest feedback.
Yeah, man, I definitely feel where you're coming from as far as being an early adopter. And even when people aren't early adopters, there's still technology that they can take advantage of, like even AI, right? There's tools that allow us to work with our customers using AI that's actually pretty proven software. You know what I'm talking about, T?
Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. How much would your dealership change if you just had one more employee who worked 24/7 to turn every lead, including the ones that come after hours? I mean,
Right.
Podium has an amazing BDC AI agent. His name's Jerry. I think that's super awesome. Jerry is warm, he's welcoming, and he schedules test drives, all that good stuff without direct human supervision. So it's basically like an extra employee working 24/7. And LA, you know what the best part is?
What?
With this seamless handoff, just because of the full integration that they have, it's
Right.
almost like I said, they have an extra employee on hands. And honestly, I can't talk more about it, guys. You guys just got to see it. If you want to explore more of Podium's AI BDC, to help you sell more cars at your dealership, just visit podium.com/MCS. And I'll also have the show notes below in the description for you guys as well. So make sure you guys head over there to learn all about Jerry. Tell him I said hi, and learn all about Podium's new AI BDC.
Absolutely. So what's the link? It's podium.com/MCS, right?
That's right.
Cool. And they could just click the link, like you said, in the show notes. Perfect. So you were saying, Tracy?
But I just tell them to increase their circle.
Right.
because it's so important. And unfortunately, the circle now, if they're not careful, is just on their phone.
Yes.
And once again, that's a good extension of your network, but it shouldn't be your network.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. And that's number one, because I see that that's hindering so many people because, and I don't know about you or T, but man, when I got into sales, my manager said, look, you need to go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings. You need to go to the Better Business Bureau meetings. You need to go to remember those sales leagues meetings, right? Or the Kiwanis or the JCs and man, whatever, right? You join as many organizations as you can locally so you can shake hands and kiss baby and get to know people and build relationships. And if you can't meet them that way and look them up and make a phone call and have lunch with them, I don't see as much of that happening now as I did 20 years ago. And I see it less and less every year. And that really does concern me because people, they don't know anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
completely
good.
agree, Tracy. I always say, you have to have both, right? Exactly what you said. If you meet them at a car show or the grocery store or the bank, you're writing a check and yeah, what are you driving? And you're qualifying, you're prospecting, and then you can get their phone number, then you contact them on social media. Now you have both, and vice versa. Exactly what you said. If you first meet them through social media, over the phone, that's great. But how can we escalate it to meeting in person and building that relationship that way? So I completely agree. I don't see that in-person meeting, going to events. I don't see that too often, and that's a huge missed opportunity for salespeople and managers.
Yep. And during this whole COVID thing, we came up with the IRL, like in real life, right? You actually meet people, right? Shake some hands, right? Talk to some people, give some folks some hugs. So that's good stuff, man. I'm loving this. All right. So now, all right, I've done that. I'm making my money. I got that tip. Now, as a manager, right? You gave us some tips about, what we should do as a manager, because some of the things, there are those managers who get promoted just because they were the top salesperson, right? And we don't necessarily think that's the reason why. But what could I do as a manager? What's the number one thing I could do maybe to help gain some influence over my team and help them make some money?
That's a really good question. And I think that's a struggle in our industry. And I'm not going to pretend it's not a struggle with at my stores because I live it each and every day. Building those relationships, though, it all goes back to relationships, right? Building those relationships with your people and your teammates is key to not only them feeling like that you care because you do care, novel idea, right? Not pretending like you care because they work for you. It can't be just about a paycheck. And I'll be totally transparent here. That's one of the most difficult things that I had to learn to do. Had to be a learned trait for me because my dad didn't do that. I'm not saying he didn't have relationships, but they were, what I would call a 9-to-5 relationship, right? You had that relationship during work, and after work, you had another set of people that you had relationships with. And I truly feel like that you need that to be an extension. That doesn't mean they always have to come over to your house or you're babysitting your kids and things like that. But I truly think it's one and the same because, if you look at certain age demographics, and definitely younger than my demo, right, that, they are more concerned with time off and family time and how much you care. And money's important, granted, but if you'll talk to most, that's third or fourth on the list. Right. So, it's more about how much you care is the employer and how much time off can they have. And, once again, data has shown that if they will give you more, if you will give them more, not meaning more money, it just means more of what they're looking for. So you got to really find out what their why is. Is it time off? And I'm actually that 20 to 30 bracket, it seems like, man, if you like a more negotiable schedule, so to speak, right? We're still in retail, so we can't. There's been conversation about you can come and go as you please as long as we, hit numbers. Well, I'd love to find a way to do that, but I don't know how that would work in a retail store that has set hours. But we do have open conversations and say, look, if you have to pick your kids up, if there's a soccer game, you need to go to that soccer game, right? It doesn't matter how much coverage we have or how much coverage we don't have. You need to be there for anything that your family's doing, period. And you need to take your day off, period. We don't want you to answer your phone on your day off. I think all those things are key from a leadership perspective and a manager's perspective And the second thing is always be a student. I know I said that earlier, but always be learning. And our industry in particular, I believe, has some of the best educational events that are ongoing and continuous and annual, and some of the best educators in the world. And I've been to other industry conventions and conferences, and I've been to some great ones. But man, for continuity as far as continual education, our industry is, and hands down, they're amazing, and we are givers by nature. We love to give back to the people inside the industry.
Right. Yeah. And we kind of talked about one of them. We talked about the Internet Sales 20 group. You spoke there, and there's actually one coming up, right? What is it? Because you got one coming up, right?
Yeah, we're having our 11th. Well, it's the 11th year. We were doing 3 a year.
Okay.
As you guys know, man, but one convention a year or conference a year or event a year is just mind numbing to a degree, right? So 3 a year got to be too much with other jobs and family and other things. So we're doing one a year. So it's our 11th year. It's a Unfair Advantage Automotive Mastermind Group meeting. It's open to new and used car dealers. We used to be 3 days. We've condensed that sucker down to one intense 10-hour day. I remember sitting in a conference 13 years ago, or a convention. I'd flown to the West Coast. I'd spent like $2,500 of my money for registration, hotel, airfare, food. We're 2 hours in, and I've been listening to vendor after vendor after vendor just pitching me and trying to sell me stuff, right? And there's a place for that. We're all salespeople. I have no problem getting sold. And even if it's disguised nicely, if there's some information in there, I'm okay with it. But for 2 hours, that's all I heard. And I said to myself, man, there's got to be a better way. And when I came back home, I started writing down on paper, what that better way would be. And I'm thinking, man, I want to talk about what I want to talk about as a dealer. How can I lead this conversation, have people in the room that I can find in the room to ask these questions about BDC or CRM or about DMS or about follow-up or about sales processes, about leadership. And that's when we came up with this idea. The hardest thing we do at this event is explain what it is. Because it's unorthodox. And we like it that way. And a few years ago, we wanted to, our goal and our vision was to have 1,000, 1,500 dealers there, move this thing out to, to a bigger city. And I got to thinking about it. That would be nice. And the photos would look good and the video would be killer. But, the reality of it is, I think I call them 1%ers. I think there's 1% of people in every industry that wants to be uncomfortable, because if you're uncomfortable, then you grow. Right. The rest like to be in the good old boys club, meaning they like to go and hang out with their friends and write a vacation off as a business expense. And if that's what they want to do, I have zero problem with that. But I think you can mesh the two. I think you can learn. I think we can educate. I think the dealers can get what they want from the event, and we can have an open dialogue and open conversation. And that's what the mastermind is. And when I came to Internet Sales 20 group meeting, there's so much of that reminded me of what we did. And I was so excited because that event was so different for me, and I've raved about it to everyone. I'm not saying that because I'm talking to you guys. I told my entire team, and some of my team was actually there, and they came back and said the same thing. Said, man, like the round tables, right? The round tables to me, I could have a full day of round tables.
Yeah,
right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it was so impactful, and we've been doing a similar format. And so I talked to Tiana and Sean. I said, look, this was so close to what we do, but yours was next level and yours was better. So you guys, I want you there, and we're going to name the roundtables after you. And I'm just going to, for lack of it, I'm just going to steal the whole, I'm going to take what we were doing and take what you're doing. I'm going to merge the two, and I'm going to give you credit for it. Right. Just call it.
That's synergy, right, Tracy? Synergy.
There you go.
Perfect synergy.
Yeah. Mastermind group meetings and roundtables have been around forever, but I said, man, we were doing it, but we weren't doing it that good. That's amazing. So, just take the two and combine the two. And man, I think the dealers are going to get so much incredible information just from that alone, much less the mastermind group meeting. So it's August 1st. It's on the beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. There's an airport in and out. Our event is one day. You can come in the night before, hit the mastermind, stay the night, head back out if you're not close enough, or you can stay the weekend. Either way, it's easy in and out, but it's intense. It's uncomfortable, and we do that on purpose because we know that those are the dealers that want to grow. If they're not
One
uncomfortable,
percenters.
they're not going to grow.
Yeah. You already said the one percenters, right? I like that.
Yeah, one
So
percenter.
so Tiana, I know you heard you're just gonna be doing a roundtable, right? So do you have anything in particular that you're gonna be talking about, T?
Yeah, kind of touching on our conversation earlier, I'm going to be speaking and also doing a roundtable on like social media, building your brand, TikTok, because exactly what Tracy was saying, right? I mean, you can have the best sales skills, you can, meet people in person, but that only goes so far, right? Especially nowadays, everybody's in your cell phone. Even the people that you meet on the street, everybody's in your cell phone. So I'm really going to be talking about how can you cultivate your specific community, whether that be, sports fan or moms, right? Or, female advocates, or even myself, like being, Gen Z. We're going to be speaking about how you can maximize those different communities on social media. So that way you don't really have to kind of waste all of our efforts on all of our leads that we're already spending so much advertising dollars, marketing, right? How can we get more out
Yeah.
of what we have in our hand, which is our cell phone? So I'm really excited to kind of talk strategies about how we can cultivate everybody's specific community and generate their own leads, especially when it comes to sales individuals, right? How can we get more of our sales individuals to generate their own leads? And I'm really excited to talk about that.
Jan, and I think I may have told you this. If not, I'll say it now. You have so much to offer our industry as a whole, both from a new car dealer perspective, and we've had new car stores in the past as well, and a used car perspective. Because when you're a female in a male dominated industry, and that's slowly changing, but it's changing way too slowly. And I'll go on record saying that my top producers, and no offense to the men, but my top producers are always female. And Jessica, who's top of the top for me. She was at the Internet Sales 20 group, and she's thirsting for knowledge, right? And your Gen Z, right? So and Gen Z tends to get a bad rap as not caring and the things I've read, right? I'm not obviously not Gen Z, but not caring and they're only for themselves and maybe a little bit maybe a little lazy, not wanting to work. I mean, we know that that's completely falsehood, right? It's a complete falsehood. It's most of the time it stems from the leadership. They've never been taught. We are taught these things. These aren't things that are natural in most of us. I mean, people are natural talkers, natural conversationalists, but sales skills and prospecting and follow up, those are things that are taught. Are some people better at it naturally? Well, yeah, because their or data shows that we use different people use different sides of their brain, right? And we know that. So you have to understand what side of the brain the person you're training or that's working for you uses, and you have to play to those strengths and play to those weaknesses. So man, you bring so much.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. I
I
appreciate that only because, especially of what you said, right? Everything that all the listeners, LA, Tracy, even myself, it's almost like growing up in the industry, we've been taught all these things. And now coming out of the pandemic, my generation has been living in a world where you didn't have to sell. You don't have to, really, build relationships or anything like that. So, now more than ever, my generation definitely needs this to be taught to them for sure.
I agree. And I'll also say this, and with all due respect to my father, who he's still with us, he's still an entrepreneur, he's still rolling, he's still making money, he's still creating a new business a day, it seems like, right? But I will say that, and he knows, by the way, I've said this to him for the most part, other than the hustle, right? He taught me the wrong way because things change, right? The way he taught, well, let me back up. He taught me the right way for what he knew and for that moment in time. How's that?
Right.
I think that's better, right? Because things change. We just can't stay in that place. If I had stayed in that place where my managers at the Toyota store taught me, where I was, man, you're, and the names that I was calling, you're stupid, and I bring them a deal, and here's what they're offering. Do you have a signature on the paper? Do you have the money? Did you get the money? And they threw a stapler at me because I didn't. I'm 17, right? I'm not saying those things were right then, but that's the way it was. And we learn from those things, right? Trial and error. I say, man, I'm not going to be, and I remember thinking, I'm not going to be that guy if I ever get in his position, right?
Right.
So, but sadly, too many people learn that that's the way they think it's supposed to be done forever. And we all know, that the 8-car salesperson who's been selling 8 cars a month for 25 years, or the manager who's been at, two dealerships a year for the past 25 years, and he's experienced in a vet. Well, I don't want to learn from him, and I don't want to learn from the 8-car
Eddie
a month person. I want to keep growing, and I want to cultivate new talent, and I want to push the people that I have working with me up and replace them, right? And the hardest thing it is for me to do as a leader and the owner of a dealership, and also my proudest moment, is if I've taught someone to move on to a better opportunity. Man, that's the worst moment, because I'm losing somebody I feel like is family, right? And I train them.
Wow.
It's like sending your kid off to into the world, and I truly feel that way, man. I've shared more than one good cry with somebody that said, "Look, I've been offered this position because they knew you trained me." And I'm not, once again, I'm not saying it from a bragging standpoint. Well, they told me that this person called me and recruited me because they knew that you trained me, and I worked for you for 8 years, and here's what they're offering me, but I don't want to leave. And I'm like, well, I can't match that offer. As much as I'd love for you to stay here, that number doesn't make sense to me. You need to take that offer and get there quick. Sign that offer before they find someone else, right?
Right.
But that's who I strive to be every day. That person is building people up and kind of sending them out. As much as I like to say, man, we have no turnover and we have very little. I'm also failing if I don't send people out to better opportunities.
Exactly. No, I love what you're saying, man. Let me just kind of give a quick recap of what I hear y'all saying, because I just shared a video with Tiana from Alux, and we can put that in the show notes too. But it talks about how, the game of life is played, and most of us, is rigged against us because our parents, they taught us what they know, but it's all at least one generation out of date, right? Even for my son, right? Yep. There's no way I could teach him about growing up and going to school during a pandemic. I just didn't have that information, right?
Right.
So that's phenomenal stuff. And then I also heard you talk about the habits of successful people at a dealership. One of them is, you just said, the 1%ers, the top mugs, right? They go to conferences, they continuously develop. And so I really like that. But then we also kind of got into, some of the mistakes that people make, which is following the wrong people. Like, everyone is either an example or a warning. Right. And we got to decide, okay, you know what, man, I love that you say, oh, he's a warning. I know what I'm not going to be, right? Which will really help us to decide who we want to be in our game, man. This is some good stuff. I know a lot of this stuff comes from experience and all of that good stuff. But other thing I know is that leaders are readers. So is there a certain book or something like that? What's a book that you would recommend that if people wanted to read outside of listening to the podcast, right? If they're readers like we are, well, is there one in particular you would point to in their direction?
Yeah, one's kind of tough, but I'll go to one of my standbys. When I hire a new team member at any of my businesses, I always give them a recommended reading list, and whether they take me up on that, that's on them, right? But I always give them, at the very top is Think and Grow Rich. It changed my life forever, and I mean that. I really mean that. It changed my life. It changed my way of thinking, and it changed my life. There's so many. You're right. Just read something. How's that? Read something, because it's junk in, junk out, and it's so easy to get sucked into the businesses on the phone. I mean, there's awesome stuff on the phone. I'm not anti-technology. I'm not that guy. I love it, but I do have to carve that time out and say, I'm going to read for this amount of time a day. I'm going to take notes. I still like my books where I highlight, in the book and make notes in the margins. And, I know that's a little old school, but it's more than one sense, right? And I know our senses are super important. So I like to see it, write it, highlight it, and repeat it. If I see something super important, I make notes, and then I reiterate to my sales team and my leadership team and say, look, I read this book and it's great. And here's the name of it. If you want it, so on Amazon, it's go to the company account. You can buy it if you want to, and we'll spare the expense. But here's what I learned and why it was important to me, right? Because I read this last night. So it's just building their library and building them up. But man, Think and Grow Rich is a powerful book. And for anyone who's never read it or even opened it up, it's the original edition, which I started with that OG edition. It's difficult to read because it's kind of like an old English, kind of reads like the Bible, kind of. But they have new revised like modern speak editions. So unless you're like an in-depth type reader, go with one of the new modern revised versions in modern speak, or you're going to get through like 4 pages and you're just going to shut it. Right. So, but the content, the information is exactly the same. It's so powerful.
I was going to say, it's so funny. I do the same exact thing, Tracy. And I actually, if I go back and let's say I read the book this year and I highlight it in green, then I'll read the book maybe the next year, and I'll have a different color, yellow.
Yes.
And then I'll re-highlight different things. And if you go back and you reread the same, even if it's the same book, you pick up different things.
Well, you do, because you're in a different season in your life and different things are speaking to you. And I kind of equate that to going to and not getting spiritual religious here, but if I'm in a church service, right, and even if you've seen it moving and stuff, man, that preacher had that message just for me, right? There may have been 300 people in the church, right, and 299 of them. I mean, he was boring today. I don't know what he was talking about, right? You need to look back at one person, like, man, that resonated with me, and it's so powerful. And I always remember that, and it changes their life. And books are I do think they're living and breathing, even though they're not. But I think they are to us, because every time we read it, like you said, it's totally different, because you're in a different place, you're in a different season, and it means something completely different to you. Just like as you get older, your parents' lessons mean something completely different at 30, 40, 50 than they did, at 15, 16, 17, right? The old saying goes, the older you get, the smarter your parents get, right? And God knows that's definitely been true for me, because at one point in my life, I was like, I'm not so sure about those two, right? I think I was King Kong, right? I'm smarter than both my parents. And I'm like, man, what was I thinking? Just experience alone, but not just forget I had no idea what I had at my disposal with my mother, because my mother taught me compassion. She taught me kindness. She taught me empathy. She taught me friendship. She taught me, love. And my dad taught me how to be direct, straightforward, how to be an entrepreneur, how to count money, balance books, write a check. So, I've been truly blessed in my life that I had two great people that represented two completely different things, and grandparents on both sides to actually back that up. Because there's a story, and I can't remember where it came from, where the kid had one grandma that gave him milk and cookies, and the other gave him beer and pretzels, right? And that's kind of the way it was in my household. They didn't give me beer and pretzels when I was a kid, but I'm just saying, just using that analogy, one was super strict, and the other one was like, yeah, whatever, climb the tree. We're going to town. We'll be back in 3 hours. If you fall out, we'll just lay on the ground till we get back, right? So I really did have the best of both worlds. So I've been very, very blessed in my life, because everybody doesn't have the opportunities that we have when we have parents that are awesome people and are leaders, and they taught us things that can be shared. I think that's important that we give back. And at this point in my career, man, I just want to give back to people who deserve it. Just like, I think we all deserve to receive that information.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think just tying it back to exactly what you said, sometimes parenting advice and management and leadership advice goes hand in hand. And that's exactly it. And managers, if you're listening, sometimes you are the parent to your team. And, do you want to be the good parent, the bad parent, the milk and cookies parent, the beer and pretzels parent? But if you think about it, we spend so many hours with our team. We're basically a family. So all the advice that Tracy's giving, LA's giving, I'm giving, it totally goes hand in hand. Parenting advice and leadership, it goes in tandem.
Fast response times can help you beat the dealer down the street. Get a tool that can respond to your leads in 15 seconds or less and help you book test drives 24/7, nights and weekends, so you can sell more cars. Podium's AI BDC is a conversational AI employee who sells, schedules, and talks with customers day and night and sounds like your best sales rep. Transform potential interest into sales today with Podium. Visit podium.com/MCS to see what AI can do for your dealership. That's podium.com/MCS, or click the link in the show notes.
Yeah, big time, big time. All right, so gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I know we got to get out of here, right? But I wanted to ask a couple of more questions just really quick because your dealerships are literally at the top of the leaderboards when it comes to success in your state, in your area, and all that kind of good stuff. And usually, right, people are at the top of their game not just by accident, it's because they train on something particular, right? Could you break that down for us? What is it that you and your teams train on, and why is it, and how often do you train? Kind of give us a quick overview of your training regimen.
That's a great question, because I don't know that I've ever been asked that, but you're right. We do train. I'm a firm believer in training. We don't train Saturdays. We're closed on Sundays, but Monday through Friday we have trained the leaders for my leadership team daily. And it's probably everything that people say they train their leadership team on, but they don't, which is sad, or they say they should, or they say they already know that, but we all need reminded. Life gets in the way and life happens, right? So it's about, and look, that's more about how are we leading the people that are on the front line and all the way to the back of the store? Who did so, and look, I'm a glass half full optimist. I always try to focus on the positive stuff. We do have to, unfortunately, bring up the negative stuff. It's like, look, who served us? Who served us well this week? Is there one person on our team that did something that really stood out that wasn't in their wheelhouse, or in another store they would say that's not my job, but they did it anyway? What are these things we can bring to the table? And maybe that's not training per se, but I think it's shifting that mindset to think of positive things so they can reiterate that to the team. With the sales team, there's a true training regimen where Mondays is follow up. Tuesdays is our sales process, because we have our own sales process that we created, and that's before you can even speak to a customer. You have to know it frontwards, backwards, sideways. I call it the subconscious consciousness, because if I say good morning to you, you're going to say what back? Good morning, right? Because you don't think about it. So that's we train on our process and how to do it our way. Number three, or Wednesday, we train on our why, right? Our why, and our why is their why. And we bring something to the table, and we let them share what they want to share. And look, sometimes we jokingly say Wednesday could even be our therapy session, right? Because going back to what T had said, we are very unaware at times as leaders that there are people in our organization, actually probably more so, that they don't have, they're from broken homes, right? Their kids are with them 1 weekend out of a month. They're one paycheck, not our fault, but they've maybe not had the best life, and they're a paycheck or two away from being homeless. And leaders aren't even aware of that. And my question is, why aren't you aware of it, right? And what can we do to resolve that? And sometimes it's just like with our customers. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to, right? Yeah. So we let them share as much as they want to, or as little as they want to, and that's our safe space. Everyone's once they come on board, we come in on Wednesdays. And we say, look, this is our safe space. You can talk about anything. If it goes outside of this room, then we're going to have another conversation outside the room, right? It's not going to be quite as friendly, because we need to know that we can trust each other, because we're an extended family. Thursday's follow up, and Friday is positive Fridays, where it goes back to sharing something positive, and it can be something as simple as, "Hey, I woke up this morning," right? And to me, God knows that's positive. And some people get real in debt. Hey, I paid off, I had my credit card debt up to $15,000, and I made my last payment yesterday. And this morning I woke up debt free with my credit card, stuff like that. And we cheer them on. So there's some very specific things that we train on, and some very warm and fuzzy, for lack of a better term.
I love it.
Yeah, there's days throughout the month we're training on CRMs and phone training, and paperwork and compliance and all the stuff that's not quite as sexy, but it's necessary.
Yeah, I love it. So did I hear correctly? You said Monday and Thursday both are follow up?
Oh, wait a minute. No, Thursday's follow up. Yeah.
I'll go back and listen to my own episode.
I listen. I should know. It's hanging on the wall in the training room.
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit with most things, and I do think that training is a habit, and you have to create that habit. You have to stay in that habit. You have to stay in that space, and if you break it, that's like going to the gym. Once you stop going, man, it's tough to get back in.
Ooh, yes, indeed. I know that one from personal experience. Awesome, man. So the cool thing is, man, you are all over the place. I love your Facebook posts. Say, oh, yeah, your story, your format, how you're doing that, man. I wish you could get a training on that alone. I'm like, goodness, man, it's such good content, man. Just the stories, and then at the end you go, and good morning, right?
Oh, good morning. Yeah.
I love all of that.
I appreciate that. I learned. I'm a reader and a writer, and I journaled when Facebook hit. I don't know. It was just a kind of a natural thing for me, and not by on intent, because when it started and I was there, right? I'm like I said, I was an early adapter. I hit MySpace. If you're old enough to remember that, and then just transferred over to Facebook and held both for a while. And then none buddies are on MySpace anymore and went to Facebook. And before you could get a professional profile or a company page, it's just it was just you. And I was like, man, this is really cool. As long as I'm not going to lose it, this would be a great place to put what not your. I mean, some people put way too personal stuff on Facebook.
Agreed.
Right? That's just me. But I'm like, man, how can I uplift people and share positive stuff and share, like I shared with you guys earlier, my positive life experiences, whether it's in my home, with my parents, with my customers. And you'll rarely, if ever, see anything negative on there. And I've even been accused of, man, you'll fake life, just putting out the good stuff. I was like, man, you look, it like I said earlier, you put out what you take in, and I love to put out positivity. Do I have negative stuff? Absolutely, man. We all have negative stuff in our life, but why would I dwell on that negative stuff? There's so many blessings, there's so many awesome things in my life. Why would I give any time or attention to the negative stuff? Do I need to address it? Absolutely. And I address it and I move on from it. If I
The only time, let's break it down, because you just put out something that was quote unquote negative. The only time is when you can put a lesson, right? You just talked about a manager situation. Tell them that real quick.
Yeah, well, look, negativity is fine as long as there's a lesson learned that turns into the positivity. But there was a sales meeting, and I had I handled something entirely wrong. I lost my temper, which is pretty rare for me, actually. But and I don't know what was going on. I just remember the feeling, right? And the feeling was, man, this isn't me, but it just came out, and I'm in it in the moment. I'm not denying that. I'm being totally transparent. And he's like, well, you're not going. I said, if you don't like it, man, you hit the, don't let the door hit you in the rear end. And so he left, right? So. And once I cooled off, I'm like, man, that was stupid. That was immature. That was childish. And I'm thinking that's definitely a life lesson. And I owe this guy an apology. And I apologized in person first. I said, man, I'd love to share this story because I think other people can learn from this. And he said, no, you go ahead, man. Look, we've hugged and made up, and he comes and visits, every month or so and says hello, and we're still family. It doesn't work here anymore, but that's completely 100% my fault. But the lesson is, you have to reflect back on those things and say, look, what can I do to keep that from happening again?
Absolutely.
Keep that happening next time, because the first time it's a mistake, it's forgivable. I think second, third time, man, it gets into that man, you just gonna keep asking for forgiveness every time, and you're not learning anything here, man. So now I'm a little untrusting and unweary, and all we have is our name, all we have is our word, and I want people to respect me not only as a human being, as a person, but as a business person. I mean, there's a trifecta there, right? But that was a good lesson. So yeah, I put that into the world, and hopefully someone can learn from that. And they're like, yeah, look, just count to 10. I got all their lessons, right, and all their advice.
Right.
And I think a lot of managers can learn from that, Tracy. Blown out customers and employees, ex-employees. And I think the biggest lesson is exactly what you just said, is that you realized your mistake and you realize, like, hey, that was out of character for me. That's not the person I want to be. And you made it better. And I think a lot of managers can learn from that, because maybe in their head, they're like, you know what? I'm not going to say sorry. I'm just not going to do it next time. But you went a step above that and you made the situation better. And because of that, they visit, right, their family again. And I just love that, Tracy.
Right.
Dad came here and bought a car last week, 3 weeks ago. So I mean,
look at that.
Family, yeah, we're
there we go.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
wonderful. So real quick, y'all, just speaking of, learning from each other and all that good stuff, how can the people come to that? You said unfair advantage. How can they
Yeah.
come to that?
So they can go to unfairadvantagemastermind.com. That's the website. We're close. August 1st is the date. But we have actually given all the friends of Dealer Synergy and any capacity in the dealership, by the way. It's not just for dealers. So let me get that out of the way. We have salespeople and we have dealer principals, new and used. So we have given them free admission, and it's true. All they have to do is get there. And they can get free admission to the mastermind. It's August 1st in South Carolina. It will be a life-changing event, powerful 10 hours with experts in the room like both you and Sean. And we've got 8 or 10 other people that we call our dealer advisory council, right? So if a dealer in the room while we're having the mastermind session say, you know what, I'm having the worst luck with follow-up. My salespeople won't do it. When they do it, they just suck, right? My job and Troy Spring, who's my co-moderator, we're just conduits. All we do is guide the conversation and say, hey, LA, what you got on that? Because you're the expert. You're part of that dealer advisory council. Why don't you speak on that? And you get the mic and you're going to help guide that conversation as the expert on that topic in the room, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm telling you, that's phenomenal stuff. So, Tiana, if you can put just whatever information, if you
I
can
was
put
going to
that in
say,
the show
yeah,
notes
if you
for
guys
us.
are listening, go to the website and you just got to use code SYNERGY.
There you go. I knew it.
SYNERGY.
So anyhow, all right, y'all. So listen, man, I always say you are the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with, and you've just been spending time with myself, L.A. Williams, the blind master, the one and only Tiana Mick, aka T Got Your Keys, and the one and only, man, this gentleman, I know I said he was a pioneer in the beginning. Now that you've heard everything he had to say, man, I'm telling you, listen. That is the one and only Mr. Tracy Myers. And man, you got to spend some time with him. This is not enough. Let me just tell you, this less than hour podcast is not enough for you to glean from all the knowledge that he has. Make sure you show up to the Unfair Advantage Mastermind. That way you can get all the information that's really meant for you. So it's your turn. Go out there and be a millionaire car salesman. We will talk to y'all later. Peace. Wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen. Before this is over, see, what you all don't know is pre-recording, and I'm gonna say in this post-recording too. I think I'm just gonna slide this in, right? We had to do this recording because right before the conference, Brother Tracy here is going on vacation, and I'm like, how in the world are you doing that, right? Because for me, I would be totally stressed, couldn't relax at all. I got a huge conference coming up. I need to know the This is you just gonna help L.A. Williams personally, right? How in the world do you do that?
Got you, man. So first of all, you got to hire the right people. You got to trust the people. You got to train the people first. Then you got to trust the people and let them do their job. My dad always said, if I've got to micromanage you, then you're not the guy for the job.
Woo.
If I've got to micromanage you, you're not the guy for the job. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of like that. And some people will say, man, that's kind of a hands-off approach, but how right was he, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that if you give the right people the responsibility, if you train them the right way and you delegate it and say, look, I trust you to do your job, that they will exceed all your expectations. Because if you micromanage and you're over their shoulder, they tend to work with hesitation. Right. And from a place of fear, because you're the big boss man, you're breathing down their neck per se. And they don't do nearly as good of a job. And I've just learned over the years that as long as you got the right people, you train them the right way and you delegate and set clear expectations of what you need, that the job really does get done. So yeah, man, I'm heading out. We're going to Alaska for 2 weeks. And I'm rolling back in, and when I'm rolling into the beach on the conference, I'm about 6 days out, and I'm gonna be walking.
You're gonna be fresh, ready to roll.
I'm ready to roll.
You must have listened to our last episode. Literally our previous episode, Tracy. It was about accountability versus micromanaging. So I think that was perfect. You probably just listened to it.
Perfect follow-up. All right, y'all. So now we really out, y'all. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.